Hey everybody, welcome to week 8 recap. We're halfway through, which is exciting and terrifying all at the same time, and I'm just excited to get into what I'm about to talk today. So let's get into it. First and foremost, the measurements. As you can see, there isn't a ton of change going on, and unfortunately, the more negative side of it is that the measurements have been going in the wrong direction. Why that is the case, I'm not too sure. I don't have a ton of insight on that as of yet. It's just 1 week, but with that said, it is still my imperative to make those numbers come down. And I'm going to get into why or how I'm going to go about that. Right out of the gate, the thing that has been working really well over the last week has been tracking my behaviors. And I think I started this in the last video where I showed you guys a short clip of what the behaviors or the habits that I was tracking on a daily basis and what I was doing and how I was going through that. So that has been a huge help for me, just being able to monitor daily behaviors, and it's just a simple tick box. Did I do it? Yes or no? And over the course of time, I'll be able to look at that and be like, okay, I'm executing extremely well on these 4 things, but why are these 3 things suffering? And then I can go and dial that in or put focus elsewhere if need be. So just the daily practice of going through that list and being like, okay, yes, no, that has been extremely helpful for me. And it's also just providing me data that I can then analyze later on a monthly basis, weekly basis, however often I want to go through it. But it's also giving me a very visual representation of like, I've been executing well on these things, but I need to put extra work over here. So that has been extremely helpful. And with that as well, it's actually provided a ton of consistency for me, and I thrive off of consistency, or when it's there. Putting it in place can be a challenge for me, which is the whole point of this. But once it's put in place, the actual practice of it is really beneficial. So over the last week, I've been putting that into play, and it has been extremely effective and beneficial for me. So that said, it's basically built a good launch pad for the following weeks, and I'm hoping to push some numbers as early as next week or the week after. So that's been really exciting for me. Now, the meat and potatoes of what I really wanted to talk about today. Looking back on the last few weeks, it's been pretty rough in terms of progress. I haven't made a ton. And so what is the next thing that I need to focus on? And instead of choosing to go back into what I've already talked about on implementing consistency, going back to my basics, I'm still doing all of that. But instead of changing those variables, what I want to focus on and what I'm choosing to focus on is I got to get more comfortable being uncomfortable. And what I mean by that is specifically around hunger, because that's my biggest downfall, or the hardest part for me is regulating food, and more specifically down regulating food. And what that means is eating less, because that's basically what is going to come into play, and why the numbers haven't changed is I've allowed a little bit too much wiggle room for myself, where I need to be a little bit more, I don't want to say strict or restrictive, but I need to be more disciplined in regulating the quantity. Basically why I think this is such huge value of getting used to being uncomfortable is when you run into that problem, where you run into that level where you start to get a little bit agitated, or you get that hunger pang, or whatever the behavior that you're experiencing when you are hungry, the more that you can kind of cross that threshold and you just get past the point of where your brain automatically says, okay, get up, move, you need to go find food right now, you actually are a little bit more calm in the pilot seat, and you can say, no, I can ride this out a little bit longer. I don't need food right now. I'm not going to starve. I'm not going to die. It's not a matter of life and death. And the more practice, the more that pattern gets grooved, the easier it is, and the easier it is to regulate temptation and basically right the ship when you start to go off course a little bit. So it's by no means an easy strategy. It's actually going to take a lot of time and effort, but in the long run, and again, this is the whole point of this 4-month challenge, is so that by New Year's and beyond, I'm in a better place and I'm in a better position so that I don't have to basically do this all over again in 4 to 6 months. I'm actually progressing through. So getting a hold of this is going to be very, very beneficial. And a lot of times people don't talk about this because it's not cool, or it's not the thing to talk about. It's not a part of a fad. So just the idea of getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, getting out of my comfort zone with regards to eating and nutrition behavior, it's very, very important that I get a hold of this now, and I'm not still struggling with it years later. So part of this whole idea of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, for me, and I've kind of touched on it, or I've alluded to it already, is the fear of being hungry. And the strategies that I'm going to be putting in place there are similar to what I've already used, in that I just need to slow down, just being able to recognize that behavior and being able to label it or name it. There's actually a tool, let's call it, in the psychology world, that's called notice and name. And if you're able to notice a specific behavior and you can name it, it takes it out of the nebulous and brings it actually into something that you can control, and something that you're thinking about consciously, instead of just subconsciously going to the fridge, opening the door, and grabbing whatever is easy. And so that is hard, but it is, again, going to be very, very beneficial. Why I'm choosing the fear of hunger is what I'm going to call it. Why I'm choosing that is because I have a tendency to eat for the impending hunger. And what I mean by that is if I'm working a shift, I will typically eat more than I need to, so that it will carry me through the course of that shift, so then by the time I get home, I'm not ravishing. And so I've done this for so many years that it's not even funny, but the ability to remove that or slow it down a little bit is going to help me just realize that, no, if I'm not hungry in the moment, I do not require food. And it's going to be a challenge, it's going to be a struggle, but that's just the reality of what needs to happen, because the numbers haven't shifted in the right direction consistently. And so now that I'm kind of in a groove of consistency, tracking daily behaviors, and that sort of stuff, I feel like I've set up a good springboard for the weeks to come, with the focus of maintaining control of my hunger, and my behavior around my hunger. That's probably the biggest thing that I need to work on. So that is really what I'm going to be focusing on for the next week or two, and still while maintaining the eat slow, eat to 80% full, still resorting back to my basics, but now we're just slowly going to be building on some of that foundation that we've been working on, or that I've been working on for the last 8 weeks now. Oh my goodness. Every time. So that's all that I wanted to talk about today. I hope that it's been useful for you to see some of the inner workings of what's going on when somebody's going through a transformation like this. And I just hope that you're able to take some value away from it. And yeah, Until next week, guys, I hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll catch you next time.